Candace Owens was an extremely valuable part of my own awakening journey. I will never discredit that part. When I was stepping off of the Democratic plantation and I needed to hear voices of those who look like me, affirming what I was thinking, what I was believing, what I was now stepping out of and into, Candace Owens was there. Now, her as well as a host of other individuals, those who look like me and look nothing like me. But I remember that time during like 2016, 2017, when I was deep diving into her content. And during that time, I would have never thought to myself that there would be a day where I would have not only criticism towards her, but where I would question the entire brand that is Candace Owens. Now, I just so happen to believe that we should put no man or woman on a pedestal, even though sometimes we just so happen to do so. We tune into people. We form these parasocial relationships. I mean, there's some people who watch me and they'll defend most things I say. And to you, I say, please think for yourself first. No matter how big the platform gets or whatever it is, I am still human as you are. Please think for yourself. And so that's why I wanted to kind of label this like the cult of Candace Owens. They are what is keeping her alive. They are what is fueling this fire that she has become, that is essentially burning everything around her. And this has little to actually do with her criticisms of Israel. Like, I think it is absolutely valid and valuable to change your mind about things, to question things at their core, and to question governments. We do it to our own government all day long. It is done towards Israel all day long. Like, there's some grand conspiracy. You can't talk about that government. Actually, you can on a daily basis. Now, try talking about, I don't know, the Iranian government or the North Korean government or something of that nature. It's a completely different story. So the reason I've come to this conclusion that Candace may not just be lost per se, she's not just on this dangerous trajectory, which is still in part of what I believe is going on overall. But I believe that she has mastered the ability of grasping, capturing an audience, right? If you're in the space of content creation, you are speaking to people, you're relating to people. It is people that are the reason why you essentially exist in the way that you do. Not saying that you're not useful, purposeful without your audience, but this is a symbiotic relationship we have. And so sometimes, you know, in the spirit of the age of content saturation, you have people who will do things for the sake of controversy, simply for the sake of controversy, because they know it's going to get clicks and views. And so this is something that I've noticed with Candace, as far as her ability to, on one day, say that, she stands on these Christian values. So she is tapping into the Christian audience that has been much of her platform, much of a conservative audience and things of that nature, right? I am Blaxit, I'm leaving the Democratic Party, etc. And then in another breath, be standing next to a guy like Kanye West. And this is early on. We're not even talking about Idler Kanye West. We're talking about he was on his way there. He was on a fast track way there. But the reason I bring this up is not because you can't hang out with who you want to hang out with and have relationships, develop relationships with whoever it is that you want to develop a relationship with. The reason I bring that up is simple. Because you had an opportunity to say, to condemn the behavior. Love to say don't hate the sinner, hate the sin type of thing. To condemn the behavior. But instead she chose a relationship, which to me was a signal, a red flag to say, well, if the relationship matters more, Mary's Freudian slip, if the relationship matters more than your actual stance and your views and your values, then what is this all about? And then in comes a character who I didn't know was tied in a long time ago. I mean, at least as far as her and her husband have been tied in, is Andrew Tate, who happens to be an individual that was close, if not best friends, with her husband. Now, Andrew Tate lives, especially in the conservative world, or, those who are more right-leaning, lives in this strange space where some people despise him, but there are others who just continue to try to enable him, those who continue to try to defend him. You don't understand. You don't understand. You're blue-pilled. You don't get it. Trust me, I get it. I used to be a red pillar. I completely and absolutely get it. I get the appeal, etc. But one thing I didn't understand was in relationship to Candace, not just the fact that Candace Owens' husband and Andrew Tate are friends before the fame, right? Just that aside is the fact that this is a man who built his reputation off of selling corn to young men. This is out of his own mouth. I'm not even getting to the allegations or the lawsuits of trafficking thing. I'm not even touching that yet. I'm just getting to the words that came up out of his mouth. He literally had what he called a PhD, a pimping degree. That was him. That's him. He put out courses on how to create this OnlyFans, agency, and how to sell these girls and essentially, how to make like 25, 50% profits. That's him. The same man that Candace Owens sits across from and has a conversation where she gives him the most softball of questions and goes on these long tirades and rants. You guys can check out the interview for yourselves and really watch it, because a lot of people just take these little snippets of stuff and that's what's disseminated to create a narrative. But she gets into these just tirades, right? She's sitting with Mr. The Matrix is out to get me, Bugatti himself, right? And then I think to myself, wait a minute. So no, she's making all these, series on like, kind of exposing all these people. But then when it comes to some of the most problematic people we have in culture today, she says nothing. Then, as recent as a few weeks ago, I see Andrew Tate sitting down with Bonnie Blue, the chick who slept with 1,000 men plus in a day. Now, of course, it's a debate, and I'm going to show you how the modern society has, pushed, and I do believe that feminism has been a complete stain. It has absolutely destroyed, the minds of women in the modern age. But nevertheless, there's no condemnation there. There's no condemnation of these complete tirades that Kanye has been going down, the absolute unhingedness. And then I think to myself, well, if I'm trying to preserve a relationship, business relationship beyond my actual said value system, of course. You speak against corn and young men are, being essentially taken advantage of, or being led astray, but then you don't condemn the man who actually built his business, his foundation, and is still living in that very same sort of way. So these are the questions that were just naturally forming in my head. People think, oh, all this came out because, she then called you out because she was saying you're paid by, the Jews. Like, yeah, I'm still waiting on a check. Hopefully it hits at some point, because I still got the same little office, same little hot, little sweaty office that I had weeks ago and weeks before that. Thank you. I'm blessed. I'm thankful. I'm fortunate that I can afford to invest into building this out for us in this way. But what really then got to me was when she started she didn't just criticize DJT. She didn't just criticize Trump and, make a full swing from the conservatism. She did it in a very specific way for a very specific audience in a very specific time. There was a time when DJT was finally calling out what was happening on college campuses, mostly on the East Coast, but all over America, right? Jewish students were being attacked and things of that nature. And there were these, pro-Hamas, pro-jihadist protests that were taking place. Columbia University and, all the Ivies, the Penn, University of Pennsylvania, all these sorts of places, right? And Trump finally puts his foot down and says something about it. In the same way I hope any other president would. Let's say, during the times of segregation, I would hope that the president would stand his ground and say enough is enough and to defend those children. I would hope so in any other environment. And so the president does exactly that. All of a sudden, Candace comes out with a video where she is stating how our freedom of speech is being infringed upon. Now, she's never brought up this freedom of speech thing. And there's a context as to why I'm saying this right now. And then, this conclusion video we're about to get into of Candace basically showing us her origins, who she began as. I'm not saying you can't change, but it just gives some insight, right? So this video comes out, Candace is speaking, and I actually did a TikTok on it early and got quite a bit of criticism because this is before it was kind of, in vogue and popular to call her out, because everybody was so afraid of the cult of Candace Owens, the ones of y'all who are going to come under here and make all sorts of defenses for stuff you don't even know much about, right? So all of a sudden, I think to myself, now, why is she calling out the impeding of free speech in this specific space? Like, This is before Iran situation, before quote unquote World War III is breaking out. Get a dishonorable discharge if you're a soldier. This is before all of that sort of stuff that she was saying came out. This just so happened to be what I would deem as enabling those who are in defense of terrorist organizations, jihadist organizations. And that's when I sat back and thought to myself, now, is she paid? That's when I started putting that narrative together. Is she paid? Is she being influenced? I mean, I had already seen, where she was going with the entire Israel conversation. I had no problem with the criticisms on Israel. That's one thing they try to ricochet on me. Well, so it's wrong now to criticize Israel and Israel and no, continue to do so. Continue to look at, discern, criticize every single thing that you desire to do so. Please do. Think for yourself. But it's no longer thinking for yourself. You're allowing this person to think for you, the cult of Candace Owens. And all of a sudden we find ourselves, the year of our Lord 2025, here we are, where I'm so embarrassed by Donald Trump. I'm done with Donald Trump. She's making every other video is something about Israel, or Zionism, which is really just a cover up for her to say Jews. Like, at least Tucker Carlson, he'll just say it straight out, right? I at least give him credit for that. Fuentes, he'll just say it. He's not going to Frankists and Zionists. And no, he'll just say the thing. I can at least respect that. But bringing it back to this conversation of free speech, I finally realized that Candace Owens is actually not necessarily an advocate of free speech. She's an advocate of whatever is going to get Candace Owens attention. It's a power dynamic with her. And the final nail in the coffin for me was an interview that was done by Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. Say what you may about both individuals, but they are who they are. I believe them to be authentic in their own spaces. So all of a sudden, after Jordan Peterson comes out stating how, there are some sociopathic sort of individuals who have infiltrated, the MAGA movement. And of course this will happen and we have to be cautious. He didn't name names, none of that. Didn't even give any clues. And a few days after that interview, all of a sudden, Candace Owens does a full op-ed, a full-blown piece on exposing Jordan Peterson, right? Slandering his name, essentially calling him out for being an addict and things of that nature. And I thought to myself then, wow. This woman here is actually dangerous. Take that as you may. So, I would like to conclude this very video with this. And the reason I continue to bring her up, by the way, in case you're wondering, because the first video I was hoping was the last, but I came to a conclusion that when you have people who are, and I'm just using these words, not because I am some sort of psychologist who can diagnose it, but when you have somebody who is this psychopathic in the way that they maneuver, sociopathic in the way that they deal with people into relationships. I mean, this is a woman who came from having a platform on PragerU to then Daily Wire. These are both Zionist organizations. And then all of a sudden, as she's being kicked out of there, she goes full blown anti. This is the type of person who you were friends with. And then they did something to you. It turned into a little blowout and they're going to be airing you out to everybody you know. They spun the story and created the story already. That's the reason why in my comments, you already see now, oh, he's paid off. He's paid off. She used one of my videos in order to make the statement that, these influencers are being paid off. And thousands of influencers are coming out and saying, or even non-influencers, just regular people just posting about, what they see with their own eyes. They're like, I'm not paid. But she spun the narrative already in her favor. And she's always been a master of that. So I want to conclude by showing y'all this video that I recently came across, which I believe would be as revealing as anything. This is our girl, Candace Owens. And this is her origins. So without further ado.
Hey guys, it is Candace Owens, the founder of socialautopsy.com. There are literally thousands of instances of hate speech being circulated online. The age of technology and social media has slowly disintegrated individual accountability, the consequences of which are devastating. Introducing Social Autopsy, the first ever search database that compiles and allows the public to easily access the digital footprint of individuals and companies. Our team has crawled through the public interfaces of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, creating real profiles for the individuals that lob hate speech over the web. These individuals are your teachers, doctors, neighbors, and business owners, and for the first time ever, you'll be given the chance to run a real background check on them to see what these people represent behind closed doors.
Wow.
Let me show you how it works.
So we're airing out the information of those who say things that we don't like. Sounds familiar, Candy.
Plug in the name of any person, company, or organization. Our database will return any number of profile hits, which can then be narrowed down by city and state. When you've located a user, you will be brought to their autopsy report, which will consist of real screenshots of words that they have shared across social media platforms.
Okay.
Have someone that you'd like to add to our morgue? Submit them.
Oh.
Our database
Wow, we even get to put their location, personal information. Wow. Would you imagine that? That almost sounds like doxing, doesn't it? Airing people's information out in such a way because they say things that you don't like. Now, I'm going to give you guys access because that video continues to run on for another minute and a half. But that was a product being promoted by none other than Candace Owens. Now, again, I'm not here to say don't be a fan of her, don't watch, do whatever you want. Please just think for yourselves, though. Don't be the cult of anybody, let alone somebody who genuinely does not have your best interest at heart and is performing in order to capture an audience. She just found an audience who is captive, an audience that already existed. Those who are on those forums, those who are, down the rabbit holes on the internet, on hating one very specific group of people. That audience is already baked in. And that's something I also had to check myself to say, I really had to check myself to say, okay, make sure that you are resonating with the right people. And that's why I continue also put this message out now, is to say, I don't want to have a community of people who are filled with hate in their heart. I don't want that. And I hope that's not how I come off, because that's not my intention ever. But I don't want that. Even if it comes by the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars are attached to it, I'm cool off that. I want rational, sane individuals who are going to think deeper and take personal accountability. And instead of blaming the world for their problems, we'll take at least an occasional look in the mirror. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there. Or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
I fell in love with the sunshine. I fell in love with the light. I fell in love with the full moon. I fell in love with the night. I can see the light again. I can see the light. You can see the life in him illuminate the night. I know the time is taking. A 365, that's a full rotation. I see you looking up, you know them constellations. Constantly gazing like house of praises, you get to praising.